Hi, everyone. I'm on a little bit early. We're going to go over a lot tonight. That's why we're starting early. So what I want to go over mainly is we're going to start off with MIRA. We're going to declassify it today. So we have been in conversations with Congress over the summer doing a large lobbying effort with them for MIRA and the policies that we have in there. We're going to introduce them to you today because a number of them are getting put in the IAmVanessaGuillen Act of 2020. I just got this from Congresswoman Spears' office, which is the IAmVanessaGuillen bill as it is right now. I think you guys can see it, right? Yeah. So they just sent this over to me, and I just did a really quick run through before this live for the declassification of MIRA because I haven't really had the time to go through every single thing. They did provide me with a fact sheet as well. If you guys can kind of see that, that kind of summarizes everything. But what we're going to show you with MIRA today, a number of policies that we've been working on will be getting put in here. And we do have meetings with them next week as well. So, this is also like an evolve, but this is the first beginning phases of what is going on. So we have been doing some lobbying efforts. Generally, just so you know, when you're doing lobbying, you don't really ever declassify what you're doing until it goes into a bill. And then once it has a bill, you generally show the bill to the public when that comes out. So what we're going to show you is MIRA, what we presented to them, and some of the conversations we're going to be having this week, and what we're looking for survivors, because there is certain things in here that are missing from the bill that we would like to get added. And there are some things that we already suggested that they put in there, which I thought was really great. So I want to start with that specifically and just show you guys what MIRA is, because unless you were part of our MIRA team, you probably have no idea. Well, no, you have an idea, but the extent of it. So what I'm going to get to is we're going to put MIRA on the screen. It's going to help you understand how this got translated over into the IAmVanessaGuillen bill and where we are now and where we're going to go next. Tonight, after I also go over that, you're going to hear from other survivors about why different aspects of MIRA was put together, and you're going to hear their stories specifically. So I'm going to go over that, and as I go over the MIRA bill, I'll tell you about the pieces that got moved in and already got put into the bill. It's just, I don't know that I can show you guys this because it's like 30 something pages. So I'll do my best just to reference it back and forth so it's a little easier for you. But we're going to just show you some of the work that we've been doing with Congress behind the scenes, and what's going to be going on in IAmVanessaGuillen bill. So if you guys have questions, definitely feel free to put it on. While I'm doing the presentation, I'm not going to be taking questions because I'm going to just try to run through the presentation first because we have so much going on tonight. So we're going to put on, hold on, let me get there. Yeah. Here we go. Let's get that going. All right. So this here, that some of you are familiar with, some of you are probably like, what is this? This was our presentation that we gave to the House and the Senate committees, particularly Jackie Spears' office. We gave them the legislation for MIRA. And MIRA is the Military Industry Regulatory Authority. So MIRA, we set it up as its own agency, its own entity that would work under the Department of Defense. So to give you an idea, this is what we gave to Congress because we were doing electronic lobbying. So that's just instructions that we don't need to go over. So how did we set this up? The way we set up MIRA is, if you look at number 3, MIRA is at the heart of everything, right? So Congress is the main oversight body. It is a department within the Department of Defense. So the way that it works is we didn't set it up as a full third-party agency altogether because it would have required 6 different committees to get involved. So what we did was, in order for the House and Senate Armed Forces Committee to be able to do the oversight and put it in the defense budget, we put it in as an independent department within the Department of Defense. You will see that throughout the IAmVanessaGuillen bill with certain aspects of the way the reporting is going to be working and the way other aspects of the bill is working as well. And then what's going to happen is generally MIRA would be reporting to Congress what would happen. So that way the House and Senate Armed Forces Committee can make changes as needed to MIRA as a regulatory body. MIRA would provide universal oversight regulations to all branches. That would include training, licensing, and audits to everyone in every branch within various chains of commands. And service members would be able to file a complaint directly with MIRA. So they wouldn't have to go through their chain of command or even go through the branches. That is our setup that we propose to Congress. They set it up a little bit differently, the way it currently is, where you can go to someone who's not in the chain of command and they're setting up a piece of an independent department for MIRA. All right, so what's the responsibilities of the reporting hierarchy is that the starting with the chain of command, right? They have to follow the regulatory standards set forth by MIRA and ensure the protection and safety of all service members. Branches will have universal oversight, training, licensing, auditing, and reporting from all branches will be sent to MIRA. Building out as a department or agency within the Department of Defense that has a Chinese wall, what that means is that it's independent and no outside influences are allowed to communicate or influence the structure within MIRA. And then reporting would go to the Joint Chief of Staff and congressional oversight. The Joint Chiefs of Staff would be able to get reports, issue directives, however, they would need approval from Congress. The reason for that is that the Joint Chiefs of Staff for many years has provided just straight lip service. So the idea now is that they won't be able to do that. And that Congress would be involved in any time changes are made within MIRA, and they would have the final powers to issue new processes and procedures. The reason for that is because if you don't have the House Armed Forces Committee and the Senate Armed Forces Committee being able to make those changes, and you don't build that into the structure, then you have to keep passing bills over and over and over again in order to make changes. So in order to have rapid response, when information from MIRA comes to the committees can make changes within them versus it having to go to a full floor vote on a regular basis. So that's the overall structure that they did put a very, very similar reporting structure where Congress, the House Armed Forces Committee and the Senate Armed Forces Committee will have the ultimate powers for MIRA. So that is, hold on, I have it in here. Yeah, so the House and Senate Armed Forces Committee are going to be receiving reports on an annual basis. And those reports that they receive on an annual basis will help them also make determinations as to what's happening, and they will be able to make changes as needed. So that's what's going to happen with the overall reporting. That means Congress will be getting annual reports on what's going on with sexual harassment, and the ability for confidential reporting will be happening. So the powers and responsibilities of MIRA. So the training and disciplinary actions have been added to the IAmVanessaGuillen bill. This week, we will talk more about auditors and licensing and arbitrators. The way they set it up right now is an independent special prosecutor, which was from MJIA, right, which many of you are familiar with. We preferred an arbitration panel because the powers are set up amongst different bodies versus one person in particular. But the way that we made the recommendation that we made was that there should be auditors that ensure leaders have full knowledge of protocols and standards to ensure that they're being upheld. Training, we basically had suggested that they get rid of SHARP and issue universal training requirements to all branches at all levels of leadership. And also staff NCOs and officers would need continuing education as well to maintain licenses to ensure that they have the knowledge, understanding, and capacity to lead. Basically, with sexual violence, a lot of the times what we would get from survivors is that the SHARP program's a joke, no one does anything, and that a lot of the training is not the way that it should be. So MIRA replicates FINRA, and FINRA has this set up with auditors, training, licensing, arbitrators, and disciplinary actions. So it's modeled after that. And from the IAmVanessaGuillen bill, the training and the disciplinary actions are going in. The difference with an arbitration panel is that an arbitration panel versus a special prosecutor are a little bit different. Arbitrators generally are a board. So you have like 3 to 7 people that sit on a board, and they are judges essentially on what happens. But instead of leaving the power with one individual person, you have a panel making decisions on the complaints. The reason we suggested an arbitration panel is that it would limit corruption, right? Because for any reason, if there is a prosecutor, even though they're independent and outside of the chain of command, the issue that could essentially come up is that there would be corruption. And if you still leave the legal system, even though you have a special prosecutor, even if you leave the chain of commands and ultimately you leave the reporting in the legal system, we just felt that that wasn't strong enough. So that's one of the main differences. The special prosecutor setup from MJIA is going in there, but we suggested an arbitration panel. So disciplinary actions, those are being issued in here. We put a variety of disciplinary actions that we made suggestions on. One of them is that sex-related crimes are their own independent offense within the UCMJ. So that there's its own repercussions and that they're a lot stricter than what they have been. So that is what is happening and going in the IAmVanessaGuillen bill. This was what we suggested as the reporting process. And one of the things that this might be in the bill, I just haven't got through the whole thing because I just got it, is that the MIRA complaint reporting process begins where a service member or someone talks about misconduct. And MIRA then opens up an investigation. The complaint becomes founded or unfounded. One of the things that we also suggested was that founded and unfounded reports should also go to Congress. So the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Forces Committee would get reports of how many cases are being reported, how many are being founded, and how many aren't, to get an idea of what is happening culturally, and also to understand what is happening over time and what trends that we're seeing. So that way the committees can make better decisions based on how to address these issues to protect service members. Disciplinary actions that we just mentioned, the way we did it in here is that the arbitrators would be able to issue disciplinary actions to the attackers. The way that it's set up currently with the special prosecutor, it would still be under the UCMJ and the chain of command in terms of how that's going. So that's something I'm going to bring up in a conversation this week to see if we can work on that to get it a little more independent in terms of the disciplinary actions. Reports of misconduct, while we did suggest for them to go to the committee, is we also would like public reporting, meaning that the public would be able to FOIA these reports as well. So what does MIRA do? And this is some of the things that we will be talking about more next week. MIRA can prevent retaliation. It saves money. It prevents homelessness, substance abuse, and suicide, and creates equality and protects all classes of service members. Well, I'll get into a little bit more of that, but this is what we're going to talk about, is that MJIA talks about the special prosecutor, which all 3 of the bills essentially in some capacity had that one way or the other. Initially, the IAmVanessaGuillen bill had just had the removing MST from the chain of command. What I want you to know about this slide is that this was given to Congress early in the summer. So this has been a work in progress. So now MIRA right now and MJIA and the IAmVanessaGuillen bill are all merged together. So there's a lot more of the, in the IAmVanessaGuillen bill, a lot of other aspects are met. Some of them are still missing, and this is why we're going to be having a conversation next week with Congresswoman Spears' office. So what we want to really focus in on for this slide is that we need to work on preventing retaliation for all vulnerable veteran classes. So right now, as it stands, this entire bill is really focusing on sexual violence in the military. And we're supportive of this, obviously. We're part of this initiative, but we do want more. And we want to protect all vulnerable veterans classes. So that's members from the LGBTQIA community, members from the Black and Latinx community, Muslim communities, like wherever someone's really a minority, we want to have this reporting process. So essentially, we want it to be a little bit more broad in its language. The reason for that is because that is what will prevent homelessness and protect benefits for vulnerable classes of veterans. Using this process will ensure that veterans don't become homeless. This is something that we'll need to talk about as well next week, because the arbitration panel would be able to prevent retaliation by overturning a decision made by the chain of command and issuing them a disciplinary action. Because they're going with just a special prosecutor versus an arbitration board, we have to further discuss how we could prevent homelessness and protect the benefits of vulnerable classes who are likely to face retaliation. So that's something that's going to be in conversation as well. In terms of the cost effectiveness of MIRA, it begins to establish as a cost neutral bill and then becomes a cost savings. So there is a positive impact on the budget for addressing these issues. And we'll go over that in a little bit. I think it might be the next slide. And then this legislation was created by all survivors, which was our legislation, but now all of these are getting combined together. So there's still more work to do. This is just where we are right now, in the process. So this is changing. The middle section is changing to look more like MIRA, but it is still a little bit different. So instead of, adding 30 more pages to this, what we did was when we provided this to Congress, we gave them the research statistics cost regarding these issues surrounding MST, veteran issues, and stories of MST survivors. So the publication that we do have fact sheets available. These fact sheets were comprised with over 21 research studies based on military sexual trauma within the last decade. We tried to state it within the next 3 to 4 years. So most of these studies are recent, but we do have the publications available. If you can't scan it on your computer, you can go to mstmovement.org/publications. And you can review many different publications we have, but especially our fact sheet if you want to learn more. Reflections magazine and our perspectives. Please remember that there's mature content in there. Aside from that, you'll hear the stories of survivors. We do not edit or censor people's stories. We let people tell their stories authentically. So in there, that tells you the stories and situations that survivors have gotten into, so that way we could best educate Congress on these issues that are happening. So that was really something that was important to us we wanted to put survivors in front of Congress. And based on what was happening with COVID-19, the best way to put survivors in front of Congress was really to do it through social media and through our website, right? Reflections and perspectives was really helpful in them being able to see a variety of your stories. So what I do want to tell you guys is that people in power have been looking at us, and they have been reading your stories, and they have been listening to what you've come out. So you're not only helping our community, but you're also helping you're helping change laws, right? And you're helping us to have a dialogue and a discourse that's really helpful to create change. So that's where we are in terms of what we've done and how you guys yourselves have contributed to this effort. So that's something that I just wanted to let you know how much I thank all of you, and I appreciate you guys for doing that. Again, we're going to be having some meetings coming up next week to really merge these a lot more to make a difference. So that's going to be something that's really important. So this is going to be the most boring slide, but this pretty much wraps it up. But this talks about how to fund. So whenever you put a bill through, you have to fund that bill. So the way in which that we're doing it was looking at how much it costs currently and how much establishing MIRA would cost and how much it would take. So essentially, it creates a savings because the more people we have, that let me see if I can make that bigger for you guys. The more people that we have who are reporting and not well, the more people we have not going through sexual violence is a cost savings in and of itself, right? So that's really where the training piece and the education piece comes in, that we want universal training that we're working on. The main aspects of what we're talking about. And then for funding in the budget for MIRA, what we really want to do is dismantle the SHARP program and create a universal training program altogether. While right now this is in the right direction, it's not at that point. But what we want to do is dismantle SHARP as it is, and then move over funding into the universal training program that we're suggesting under MIRA. And that universal training program would have specialized trainers, and there's specific requirements that would have to get met where people can't avoid giving training, or, because it's within the chain of command, people don't do necessarily what they're supposed to do. It would be independent, but everybody would have the same universal requirements to meet those standards. So this pretty much brings us to the end. Yeah, this brings us to the end. What I do want to just go over with everyone right now before we transition to the next area is that the all of this that you're seeing here is the intellectual property of the military sexual trauma movement. So in the event that you're reproducing it or you're doing campaigns or anything to help us in the fight to end MST, we're on board with that, but please reach out to us for written approval first. If you're using any of our content for any reason, we need to make sure that it aligns with our values. At MSTM, we hold very progressive values. We're very inclusive. We work with the LGBTQIA community. We work with the Black community. We work with the Latinx community. And there are some organizations that do not support the efforts that we support. So if you are going to be using any of our material, hashtags, branding, just please keep in mind to shoot us an email, message us in DM, and just facilitate the conversation so we know what you're doing with our content. We're pretty flexible when a dialogue is started, but if anyone is using our content without our permission, that's a legal issue, right? And while we don't want that to happen, we will protect our brand. So I want everyone to just keep that in mind. And I'm going to end this presentation because that is a summary of MIRA and what we have been doing over the summer with, Congress and the House Armed Forces Committee, and the whole year with the Senate Armed Forces Committee. We've been working with Senator McSally's office, and many of you know that last year we went to DC, and while we were out there, we did demonstrations, we did lobbying, and from there, we were able to build a healthy relationship with Senator McSally's office, and we have been working on these initiatives as well with them. So now when the amount of public support was coming up for IAmVanessaGuillen, that's where we spoke about what we thought was the best direction to get this moving and going forward. So MIRA has evolved to really become part of the IAmVanessaGuillen bill. And, one of the conversations that I did have with the members of Congress and their staffers was, how would we feel of having MIRA in honor of Vanessa Guillen? And what I want everyone to keep in mind is that while our name's not directly on it, I think that this is one of the best legacies that we can leave as an organization. The Guillen family themselves is never going to get Vanessa back. And I want everyone to sit with that for a second. This is Vanessa's legacy. And I myself have been in a situation where I went UA because I thought I was going to get killed. So what I want to put into perspective really quick is that that did happen to Vanessa. And, my story, and I'm Hispanic. So my story hits really close to home with her story. and, leaving our legacy and our work and putting it under the IAmVanessaGuillen Act of 2020, I personally think is probably one of the best legacies that we can leave for MSTM. So what I want everyone to know, because I know some of you were like upset that you saw pieces of our bill taken and put into the IAmVanessaGuillen Act of 2020, and you're like, this is our work, this is what we're doing, and we want credit. And what I want everyone to know is like, your work is not going unnoticed. Like, your stories are being heard. Your stories are being put in front of Congress. Your stories are this is what we've been doing. The reason why I didn't feel the need to come out and say any of this publicly is because we were at such early phases. You don't know how things are going to manifest. But now we're at a point that everything is manifesting. So what I just want everyone to know is that this for MSTM is, one of the greatest legacies that we can leave behind, and really how we can fight to make a difference. So we're really proud to be a part of this, and we've had our ups and our downs while we're working towards change. But this is a great, great legacy to leave, and I'm proud to be a part of this. And I know that everyone else that we're working with is proud to be part of this too. So as things continue evolving, we will let you know. Like I said, we're going over, we have to go over the bill a little bit more, so you guys can see that we're working with Jackie Spears' office on the IAmVanessaGuillen bill. So while we're going to continue working on that over the next couple weeks, we will give you guys updates, and you'll know, what's going on. As other things and changes come out, we would love, we want to work with everyone. And if you have ideas and suggestions, feel free to bring them to us. And if it's worth having a conversation with your office about, we can add some of these other ideas and suggestions in as well. But that's what the summer at MSTM has looked like. And, we're going to continue the dialogue and the discourse so we can hopefully get this bill to align a little bit more with MIRA than it does, even though a lot of our policies are in here, which is great. And I'm really happy about that. But I would like to see some other changes that I know for a fact many of you have brought up. Wrapping that up, I want to introduce you to a lot of our other volunteers at MSTM. Some of them you know, some of them you don't, but I'm going to add them to our feed here because I want you to meet them and I want you to hear their stories. So I'm going to put everyone in the feed. So there's going to be 4 other people who are going to come into the feed on the screen, and then I will introduce everyone. But I want you to hear the stories of other survivors and what they have, gone through and why their stories are important. So I'm going to introduce everyone really quick so everyone can say hi. And then we're going to get into, everyone telling their stories. So everyone meet Amanda. Amanda goes by their and theirs. Meet Corey. Corey goes by she, hers. Anna Lynn goes by she, hers. And Jessica goes by she, hers. And I go by she, hers. So that's everyone who's here who's going to be telling their story. Amanda, I really want to start with you and your story. I know, you're also part of the LGBTQIA community, so I would love to also hear about how that experience has impacted you, because one of the main focus points with MIRA is focusing on other minority communities, and the direction we want to go in with Congress is for the IAmVanessaGuillen bill to be more inclusive. So I really want to just start with you and hear a little bit about your story. So I'm gonna, bring the screen whole for you so we can listen to your story.
Thanks. Can you hear me all right? Okay. So, hi, my name's Amanda Leanne Brunzell. My pronouns are they, them. I go by Elby. Super easy, much easier than Amanda Leanne. But yeah, so my story is much like many other people's stories. I had an added twist into it. I like to call it the worst day of my life. What happened is I was sick and I kept going to medical, and they had to send me out off base to see a specialist. And I had seen my endocrinologist around 3:15 that afternoon, and he told me I had a pituitary adenoma, which is a really fancy way of saying brain tumor. And so I I didn't know what it was. I'm 20 years old, like not living at home, like not worried about my health. Um, because you're invincible at 20 when you're in the Navy. But no, found out I had a brain tumor, called home, talked to my mother. She freaked out, which then freaked me out. And so I called up one of my friends. I was tutoring him uh, for his A school. We were in the same schoolhouse. And we planned to meet after chow, and I met up with him and to grieve, to vent about how I was feeling about having a brain tumor. And well, he he raped me, um, and one of the things that stands out in my mind is he told me that would make me feel better. And it did anything but that. Um, it finished, and I wanted to get the taste of him off of me. I wanted to forget, and I proceeded to drink a half-gallon of Captain Morgan's in 45 minutes. I was suicidal, and I, yeah, I was caught. Somehow I got through my quarter deck and to my room, but I forgot to turn my Liberty card in. And so the petty officer in charge came to my room, found me unresponsive, and I was told, I don't remember this, but I was told when the paramedics came, I fought them off. Um, and I, I don't remember it. I can fully understand now why that was my reaction. Um, but yeah, I came to the next morning, and I woke up in the emergency room of Naval Hospital, Pensacola, and I requested a rape kit. And they said, no, the reason why I feel funny down there is because I had a catheter. Um, and that was definitely not the case. I remembered, and I hated that I remembered. And I was 20 years old. So I was released from the ER later that morning, and I was required to go to legal. And um, I remember the petty officer that I was interviewing me on what happened said, and she used my maiden name, I think you're just trying to get out of trouble. Um, when I asked her for a rape kit. So that was the second time. And I mean, it felt horrible that I remembered what happened, that I was advocating for myself. And then I was, told I'm trying to get out of trouble. Um, so I ended up going to a civilian hospital, and uh, NCIS showed up like almost immediately. And they questioned why I wasn't at the Naval Hospital. And I had to explain, like, they denied me a rape kit. Um, and it sucked. Um, NCIS was brought in, of course, and actually, 3 days after the incident, he he um he admitted to what he did to the agent via text. Um, and I remember it. He was a friend. Um, it was someone that I felt close enough to confide in, and in one quick swoop, that was gone. And I remember him sitting in the office with tears going down his eyes saying, "Don't ruin my life." And I don't think he realized he had already ruined mine. Um, and yeah, I he lost his A school, and switched to a different schoolhouse. Um, and I was sent to rehab because I was 20 years old, with alcohol poisoning. And it sucked. It was that or get my rank and my pay taken away. Like, that was my choice. Go to rehab or lose your rank. And it sucked. It really sucked. Um, and, that was the beginning of a really rough 6 months in my life. During that time, I went to rehab. My mother had quadruple heart surgery. Hurricane Ivan uh, had happened, and like my entire life, like more and more and more piled on. And like I had the classical symptoms of PTSD. And instead, I was told I was bipolar, um, which was a misdiagnosis. Um, but yeah, it ruined everything. Um, and about 18 months later, I'm still at Pensacola. Um, and this whole time, I've been depressed. I've been suicidal, and I'm not getting treatment for being raped. Um, and I finally I said I can't do it anymore, and I went UA. Um, and it really sucks because instead of getting help, I was just pushed away to the point that I knew if I stayed there, I was gonna die. And you know what? It hurts because I came back and I was put in handcuffs. And then I was told that I had a pattern of misconduct, and that's why I would be kicked out of the Navy. And my pattern of misconduct was drinking as a minor after I got raped, wanting to kill myself, and then escaping the place where I dealt with this horrible, horrible action. And I was kicked out. And for a while, I didn't let it get to me. And the problem with that was when you stuff it all in and it all comes out, it all comes out. Um, because I got an other than honorable discharge, I did not qualify uh, for mental health treatment or VA care. And I was really lucky. I was married and I was able to get health insurance through him, which should never be the case for anyone. Um, Go Medicare for all. Yeah. Um, but yeah, without proper treatment for 13 years, I suffered. I was homeless during that time. I dealt with another sexual assault. And what really sucks is I know a lot of that was because of my discharge and retaliation and so much. I'm very blessed to have found a great community of advocates and friends. Um, and that's been such a lifeline. Um, I was running for Congress before this, specifically on this issue. Like, um, for me to see MIRA pass, um, a lot of people look at me and say, "Oh, I'm brave for telling my story," and I'm not brave. I'm not brave. I'm just someone who life got thrown at me and I took it. And that time could have been made much easier if policies like this were enacted even 15 years ago. And me telling my story in some way helps another survivor, or me going back to school for public policy so that I can create a bill and fight for something like that, then telling my story is worth it. It, I tell my story so others don't have to. And yeah.
Amanda, I want to say thank you for sharing your story. And what's so crazy was this is the first time I heard your story start to finish. And obviously from, engaging in the same community, we talk, and also like meeting at VOI and everything, like we have spoken, but the thing is, this is the first time I'm hearing your story start to finish. And when you were speaking, I was legit going through flashbacks. I was like, I've been through this, I've been through this, I've been through this. And what it made me realize was the reason you love the movement the way that you do is because you fit in. Like, you fit in so perfectly into everything, from the struggles you've had to what we're doing and where we're going. Like, it makes sense to me now how our connection happens. And I'm just really thankful that you're here, and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for helping us make a difference. And what I really want to say thank you is that what we're doing now, and to be able to leave the legacy that we're leaving and the work that we're doing in the organization, this is huge. And we're protecting the next generation of young people. So I want to say thank you for really being a part of that story. It does mean a lot. I do want to bring in Jessica. And so if you want to say bye real quick, I don't want to just tell everyone. And then I'll bring in Jessica on, so that way we can hear her a little bit from her story. But I do just want to say thank you again. I really appreciate it. And all of us appreciate it.
Thank you, Janelle. It's been an honor.
Thank you.
Hey.
How are you?
Well, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I was nodding my head, thinking the same thing. Yes, I went through that. I get it. I know it. So,
yeah, I can't wait to hear like your story start to finish either. I mean, I've heard more of your story, but I can't wait to really hear your story. And by the way, you look absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Well, my name is Jessica. I was in the Army. My story is quite long. I first when my first duty station was in South Korea. I was at Camp Red Cloud. And my first unit there, I was treated very poorly because I wouldn't sleep with my NCOs. I did not hang out with my NCOs. I didn't really hang out with people in my platoon. And so I got a lot of backlash from that. I mean, to the point where I was like questioning my sanity, like, is there something wrong with me? Did I do something wrong? They would, treat me bad. And then later on, I would eventually get moved companies, and I ended up dating a guy who not only sexually assaulted me off post, but sexually assaulted me with his staff sergeant off post, who I thought I was safe with these people. Obviously, I wasn't. But people think that the assault in the military was basically left for dead. But it was everything after. Everything after was probably just as traumatic, if not worse. I reported it. I showed up at in Yongsan, which is there. I went to the police station. I did not want to file a unrestricted report, but because I showed up at the police station, I had to be unrestricted. I ended up at the hospital after 6 hours of waiting for the forensic doctor to get there. I finally got a rape kit. They CID interrogated me for another 6 to 10 hours. After that, I did not get back to my barracks until about 10 o'clock at night. And then after that, then the storm really started. And I was told it was going to be nothing but a he said, she said case. You probably should just, leave it alone. It was very disheartening because I thought, y'all are supposed to protect me. This was not supposed to happen. Eventually, I PCS'd from South Korea after fighting with CID to get me off the peninsula. I was fortunate enough to have a command sergeant major who was very good to me. And I told him straight up, I was like, if you do not let me go home, then you might as well send me home in a body bag. And he was able to change my duty station from Fort Hood to Fort Campbell, where my family is from, around that area in Nashville, Tennessee. And when I got there, I was introduced to another SHARP program and things like that, and they failed me because they treated me like, well, you should be lucky that this is even going to trial. You should be lucky that they're even investigating this. There were many nights that my family drove an hour and a half away from their home to be on Fort Campbell with me in the middle of the night to testify via telephone for JAG. And so it was a mess. And then we ended up going back to Korea for one of the trials, and come to find out that the staff sergeant had tried to assault a fellow soldier in his barracks a month before mine. So he was already under investigation for sexual assault when my assault happened. And he ended up getting demoted to E2. He got 6 months confinement, and that was it. Well, the PFC, who had been my friend, who assaulted me, would later get a half month's forfeiture of pay and end up continuing his military career, while I sat at Fort Campbell and tried to get a med board, which my parents, if it wasn't for my mom and dad, I probably would be dead. I mean, they really they stepped up when, you know, nobody else would. So bottom line is I got my med board. I got treated like crap while I was there because, you know, I wasn't blown up. I didn't have cancer. I didn't have those things. I had to fight to get off post counseling, and nobody knew what to do with me. I was definitely the odd man out. So to kind of wrap things up, we got to change this, that the MSTM Act is taking some of MIRA and doing great things with that. And I just want better for the future, because I think about, what if I have a daughter? What if I have a son? I don't want them to be a victim. Years after this happened, I found out that my aunt, who had been in the Navy, was sexually assaulted. So not only had my dad been there with her through that, he was there for me when I went through it. And, I see that it really affected my family, because the mental health issues that I've dealt with, I mean, my assault happened in 2008 and I'm still dealing with it today. And it is going to be a lifetime of work, hard work, and I've skipped a lot of like good, bad, and ugly stuff that's happened, but to really narrow it down, this has got to stop, and we have to do something.
I want to say thank you for sharing your story. A lot of what you said is the reason we're taking the efforts we are. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of this. Like,
You're welcome.
It does take courage, to tell your story. And I don't think people who are watching sometimes but never put themselves out there, I don't think they realize how hard it really is, when you put yourself out there, the good, bad, and ugly of what happens.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is there were amazing people who were there for me, but there were a lot of crappy people that we had to fight.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And it's unfortunate that it goes that way, but yeah, it's because we need to create universal standards. And before we wrap up, one of the things that I wanted to really point out was, right now the IAmVanessaGuillen bill does not dissolve SHARP as it is. I did check the bill right before I got on to see if they implemented that. While right now they're looking to do more universal style training, they're still looking to keep the SHARP program as is. And I think that really needs to change. And when you were when you were telling your story, I heard a couple of times how you mentioned SHARP, and I saw even some of the audience in the community members tuned in and also were replying to you about that, and how, all of you have shared this bad experience with SHARP. So I wanted to just put an emphasis on that as we're wrapping up, to mention that, because that is one of the areas that I think, we should have a conversation with Congress next week about how we implement changes within SHARP. And hearing a story like yours is very strong in the reasons we need these changes in training. So I want to say thank you for sharing this, your story. Thank you for making this contribution, and thank you for being able to share your story so we can impact change. And thank you for helping us to create a stronger and wider legacy for MSTM and her family. Because, I think part of giving her the legacy that she really deserves is ensuring that we're putting as much protection as possible for a wide variety of scenarios. So
absolutely. And when this all came out, I felt it like it happened to me all over again, because I felt like I was her.
Yeah.
And I told my mom, I said, as crazy as it may sound, but she's from Texas, and Texans take care of Texans. And if nothing else, the people of Texas will make sure she is never forgotten.
Well, yeah, and that's part of the legacy that we're looking to leave as well. And that's why we're working to join forces and really work to leave an incredible legacy that protects all of us. So, thank you for joining our fights to end MST.
Thank
Really,
you for having me. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for being a part of this. All right, everyone. Our next guest is Anna Lynn. She's going to tell her story, so I'm going to bring her in. She was married to a U.S. Marine. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So I can't wait to hear your story. So I'm going to put you on the screen,
Okay.
and then we're going to hear all about your story.
All right, awesome. So first of all, thank you for giving me the chance to be able to tell my story. A lot of my friends and a lot of my family don't even really know the kind of things that I went through during that relationship. I met this man when I was 17. He was 21 and in the Marine Corps. And what wouldn't be attractive to a 17-year-old high school girl than a young man with a car and his own place? And he definitely said and did all of the right things to get me hooked in, being so young and naive. I always thought things were off because he would always tell me, oh, I don't like you wearing makeup. You don't need it. You're pretty without it. So it was those little cues to where I started slowly like not wearing makeup around him, not coloring my hair, and just losing my self-identity. And then I knew that I was in real trouble right after I had our son, maybe 6 months after I had him. He had another brother, another Marine over at our home that was in the middle of a PCS, and he just wanted to crash there for the night before he left. And we're sitting on the couch. I thought everything was normal. He gets up and goes to the kitchen, and I'm under a blanket. And this person thought that it would be appropriate to get underneath the blanket with me and to begin touching me inappropriately. And I kind of froze and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. My husband was right there at the time, was in the kitchen. I had my 6-month-old upstairs and I just froze. And then the minute my then husband came and walked in, and I looked at him and I said, help. And he told me to sit back and to relax, and that this person, he had his permission. And I maybe sat there for like another, what felt like eternity. But I got the courage and I got up and I ran upstairs. And after that situation, he followed me upstairs to where our son was, and he just kind of berated me for embarrassing him in front of one of his brothers. And slowly but surely, as our marriage and our relationship progressed, he got more and more abusive. I actually had reported him to 4 different commands, all of which had said, you know what you got yourself into when you married a Marine. You're just young. You'll learn that this is just how we are. This is part of our culture. It's normal for Marines and brothers to share everything. Fast forward to 2014. I had heard whispers at this command that we had an open marriage. That was news to me. And after I had heard that, I confronted him about it, and he got really angry, and he got really upset. And at this time, we now had 3 kids. So I was trying to get him to be honest with me, but I knew that wasn't going to happen. And I grabbed my 3 kids and I put them in the master bedroom closet. It was kind of like their safe space for when mommy and daddy fought. And so I put my kids in the closet and I told them just to stay put and I would come back in a little bit and get them. He swung the door open behind me while I was trying to put them in the back of the closet so they couldn't hear or see anything. And he grabbed me by my hair, threw me on the bed, made the kids get out of the closet, and said, "Kids, this is what happens when mommy doesn't listen to daddy." And he raped me in front of our kids. And I went to his commander and I told him everything that happened. Tried to get somebody to do something about it, but they didn't believe me. All because of the fabricated story of us having an open marriage, and I was supposedly okay with it. But yeah, that was my breaking point. And ever since then, I've just been fighting to protect my kids, fighting to protect other soldiers. I've gone through similar things. Because of the assault that he did that night and me going and reporting, the commander removed me as the FRG leader. And his exact words were, "You are not what the FRG leader should be in the Army. You are not the kind of wife that we want representing our families." And that was it. Everybody who I thought was my family was no longer my family. I lost my whole sense of who I thought I was through that.
Anna Lynn, thank you for sharing that story. When you were speaking, especially when you were talking about the culture and how they told you that this is the culture, this is normal, this is okay, and the fact that you were 17, I went through this at the age of 17, and when I reported it, they told me that this is the culture that I signed up for, and that this was normal, and that if I was going to be a Marine, I needed to learn to accept this behavior, and that I needed to fall in line, because if I didn't, I would be making the military look bad, and why would I ever want to do something like that? You know, and like no one will ever believe you anyway. And, you know, when you're 17 years old, that does critical damage to your brain's development and your well-being.
Yes.
So, you know, the fact that you had to do that and you had to do that with children, I just want to acknowledge the incredible level of strength that it has taken you to get here, because what I know for sure is that if I had had kids, I would not be here. I wouldn't have been able to go through everything and see my kids go through that I would have committed suicide. So I knew like me not having children was my lifeline for me to continue going, because I knew if I ever had a child and my child had to ever witness what I was going through in my life, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would be too ashamed. I would be too ashamed to be a role model for my child dealing with the struggles that I was dealing with. So what I want to just say to you is that I commend the incredible level of courage that you have inside of you. And I also just want to recognize that, like, you are what we represent here. We represent people who are courageous, and, you know, for you to share that and really just be a mom to go through all that, like, your courage means the world, you know, and I just want you to know that.
Thank you. The main reason for me coming out and speaking, aside from what happened to MSTM, I have a teenage son and a teenage daughter. And I would hate to get that phone call from my daughter that this happened to her. I would hate to get a phone call saying that my son was an abuser. And what kind of person and what kind of mother would I be if I didn't speak and try to create change for them? That I wouldn't, I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, they're my motivation for everything that I do.
Yeah. And, you know, so that's what I'm saying. Your strength is like coming from your children.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, I would always think about that. And I was like, if I have kids, I can't do it. Like, I can't see my kid go through this. Like, I can't do it. And like, as I kept developing, I'm like, no, I gotta fight. I gotta fight. Like, people's kids can't go through this. So I can understand, but I also understand how incredibly hard that has to be as a mom, you know?
Yeah.
Being a mom in general is hard. Being a mom overcoming trauma and trying to protect your kids all at the same time, like, ooh, that gave you some wings.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I'm gonna bring Corey in now. So if you just want to say bye to everyone really quick. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Corey.
Hi, everybody.
I'm happy to have you here. So you guys met Corey, but like under like bad circumstances.
Yes.
They're under crisis time, like serious crisis. But yo, she delivered and she conquered. You really did. So I was like, wow. Like, I talk about crisis management skills. Corey went above and beyond and delivered for the community, and like, her and Jen together was just amazing. And then Ellie came in and was supportive. Like, our team, we have good people here.
We really do.
Good people, and we have such like, I love our community. Like, I love our community, and I'm so thankful to be a part of it. And I'm thankful that Corey is a part of it. I'm glad to just be in her life. I'm glad to be here for the ride. So I'm gonna let her tell her story now. Hi, Corey.
Hello. Hi, everybody. So I was in the Navy. I went in undesignated seaman. Did 5 years with them. But I went in undesignated. But the job I really wanted to have was to be a corpsman, and that was all booked up at the time. And my dad was actually in the Navy too before he was in the SEAL program, and he is a Navy SEAL, or was. He's gotten out now. But so I went in knowing full well that I would be doing the grunt work, doing all the chipping paint, and all that stuff. And I was very sheltered. Like, I went in straight out of high school, 18 years old, and so when that happened, we had just gotten back from deployment, and I had been in the office, and at this time I had been working so hard to start trying to get up to work on the job training time up at medical, to start trying to strike corpsman, which is what we'd have to, or undesignated seaman would have to do to pick a job. So at this time I had been sitting in the office on the ship, and I just got an email, super excited, perky, jumping up and down, all happy, because I just got approved for, I believe it was 2 days a week at that time, for on-the-job training. So I didn't have to work in deck department. I was able to work up in medical 2 days out of the week. And so I had my E4 come in, and he's this big hulking guy. And I'm like super excited. So I jump up and I'm like, hey, guess what? And out of nowhere, he just goes and does the whole honka honka on my chest. And I'm like, okay, no, that's not okay. I take a step back. I'm like, what? No, just no. And then out of nowhere, he does it again. He's like, okay, now get out of this fucking office before I rape you. So I distracted myself from the office, and I went into the P-way and ended up running into 2 more of our shipmates at the end before I could actually get away from that whole area. And we were chatting there, and he comes up behind me and grabs my left breast and starts dry humping me from behind in front of those 2 witnesses. And like, I froze up. Like, I didn't know what to do. They were laughing. Everybody was having a good time with it. And I don't remember much of what happened later that day, but I know I went to my best friend. She was actually an undesignated airman, but she was already working full-time up in medical. And everybody knew me and her were best friends and everything. Told her everything that happened. And the next day I went into work and I found out I would have to work under him that whole day. And I immediately made some excuse to get away. I texted my friend who was a victim's advocate at the time, and we met up in the mess desk and I told him everything. And he's like, okay, well, you have two options. You can do the unrestricted reporting or the restricted reporting. I'm like, okay, can I have like a day to think about this? He's like, yeah, you have 24 hours to figure out what you want to do. Just get back to me tomorrow. I'm like, okay. So I immediately went up to medical to talk to my best friend. And what I came to find out was that he immediately went to the superior of the victims advocate program, who was an E6 up in medical, who also knew who my best friend was in medical. That E6 immediately went to our E8 at the time. He ended up becoming E9 before I left the ship. But she went to him, told him my story and what happened, and then immediately came to the room that I'm talking to my best friend and telling her I just talked to a victim's advocate. I had time to figure out what way I wanted to take this. Like, finally, I have a choice in something I wanted to do for myself. And the E6 walks in and she's like, Seaman Cashman, we need to see you in the office. And I'm like, okay. So I follow her in the office with our E8 at the time. And they're like, okay, you have two options. First option is we send your best friend up to Captain's Mast for a failure report because she did not report your sexual assault. Or you can do an unrestricted report and save your best friend from going up to Mast. So obviously, in that situation, I, of course, said I was going to do the unrestricted report. So I immediately got sent down to MA's office. I was sitting outside of them for hours. I did my interview with them while because the MA office was in the galley, so like everyone's walking through the galley, seeing me sit in the MA's office and knows exactly something's going on, like something bad is going on. So I made the report to them, then I got sent up to my chain of command's forecastle up in the forecastle, and all the officers of all three divisions were up there, all the E6s. They sent the only female officer out to talk to me, saying that they'd support me and blah, blah, blah. And they were actually pretty helpful and immediately got me switched to a different division. But then I had to immediately go to NCIS, make the whole report yet again. And it was just like a whole day worth of reporting, telling the story over and over and over. And shortly after that, though, luckily, I ended up getting moved up to medical full time. And I wasn't having going from working in deck department, chipping the paint and everything, to drawing blood, doing IVs, doing everything like I wanted to do in the Navy. Like, it was my dream job. Like, I was always happy. I was always smiling. And the officer in charge one day pulled me aside. She's like, okay, just letting you know, NCIS pulled in your perpetrator. They interrogated him for 3 hours until he finally confessed. I'm like, okay, thank God, it's over. Like, I don't have to deal with this anymore. And that was where I was wrong. So I was driving home, and that's when all the hate messages from his friends, because it was very well liked, started getting harassed by all of them. Within 3 days of him being pulled in from NCIS, I was taken off the ship, spent the rest of my time in a different command until I went to corps school. So I lost my ability to be able to get my ESWAS pin, so I looked like a shitbag when I went to corps school after already being in the fleet, along with all this other trauma. And it wasn't even like it ended there. Like, the Navy is such a small world, and I ended up getting out honorably, thankfully. But it didn't end there. Like, just this last 6 months, I've talked with Janelle and Ellie about this. Within, I want to say it was 6 months ago, I had gotten invited to a deck department group on Facebook, and we're just all catching up and everything. But I found out the only reason why I was actually invited into that group was so they could invite my assaulter into the group to re-victimize me. And that wasn't even the worst of it. So after that happened, I had contacted MJIA because I had heard that he was working at McDonald's, but he's supposed to be a registered sex offender. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to check it out. He can't work at McDonald's because he's around children and sex offenders can't be. And so I guess NCIS had gotten him fired, and he got put back on the list, and then all his friends started messaging me or trying to re-victimize me again on Facebook through the messages. I'm like, okay, well, he wasn't doing what he was supposed to. That's not my problem. And if we had bills like MIRA like this, none of us would have had to go through any situation like this. This needs to change.
Corey, thank you so much for sharing your story. I just want to let you know that your story, oh my gosh. So if it's the person who gets thrown negativity at her on Facebook, like, I get it. So like, especially when it's about like rape and sexual assault, and people are like, I don't believe you, is it fake? And then when there's also like other women who are coming after you and they're like, well, I don't know, it's real. And then they're believing the propaganda, and they're like,
but the thing that pisses me off the most with all that too is they try to claim that what happened to me wasn't sexual assault because I wasn't raped. I'm like, no, any unwanted touch is literally by definition sexual assault.
Right. Right. But that, and they'll tell you, right. But that's what bothers me, is that certain females will be like, well, rape didn't really happen. Oh, I don't believe that rape happened to her. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I would not be coming here dedicating my entire life to fight for change so other women don't have to get raped if I didn't really get raped. Like, what? I would have stayed in that 6-figure job in finance. Like, are you serious? Are you serious? If I was doing this for money, I would not be here. You know what I mean? And then you're like, I'm telling my story to fight for others, you know? So I commend you for doing that. And I commend you for also like just keeping it real, you know, and just telling people what it's really like, because social media can be a force for good. But when you let your ugly side come out on social media, it's just not healthy. You know what I mean? It's like, you see the worst, you see the best of people on Facebook, and you see the worst of people. You're like, wow, this is the cesspool of humanity that exists. And then other times you're like, I'm so inspired to be a human. And you're like, why do I feel on the same thing from one post to the other on Facebook? You know what I mean?
It's always back and forth like that.
Yeah, right? It's the social media. I guess that's what keeps us on it, though, right? Like, you know, onto something with that. Like, we make so much money, it's insane. I'm just gonna bring everyone else in. Ooh, or maybe I'm not gonna bring everyone else in. Here we go. I just wanted to bring all of you guys in really quick, because what I want to talk to you guys about is next week. I'm going to be meeting with Congress. I'm going to be meeting with Congresswoman Spears and her office. And I wanted to tell all of you this. Here is, how do you feel about me giving them this live?
Yes, definitely.
Are you on board with it?
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to make sure, like, because I would love to share your stories with them as we further, you know, work on the IAmVanessaGuillen Act of 2020. I want to be able to make sure that we're getting you justice now, and that you guys don't have to wait just because your storylines are deviating and falling a little out the box. You know, maybe from some other people's stories, that we're including you in the legislation as well. And in order to do that, the best way for me to communicate is by putting your stories forward as well. All right.
Oh, absolutely.
Wait a second. This is not what we want.
Like, does everyone zoom at or like?
Yeah. I mean, I figured you know, it's the pursuit of change, and you know, this is an opportunity. So I wanted to see how you all would feel. All right.
And
Well, yeah, I mean,
even going
I
forward,
feel sorry.
We're excited. It's cool.
No, I just feel like, you know, put faces. What if I was your daughter? You know, what if I was your son? You know,
right?
Right. What if I was your wife, or your
exactly.
or your daughter, or your sister, your friends?
Yeah.
Your mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your mom.
Your mother. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, we're all members of the community, and we all deserve to be heard. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of you for coming and really telling your stories. And thank you for being a part of this, not only communicating with our community, but communicating with people in power. You know, this is what we're doing during COVID.
Right?
I just want to say thank you to all of you for being a part of this, and I'm thankful.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
All right. So before wrapping up for the night, everyone, we've been on here actually for a while, since a little before 6 o'clock. We went over MIRA and our legislation. We went over the IAmVanessaGuillen bill, the aspects of our bills that are merging, and the more work that needs to be done. So today when we were speaking, you got to hear all of that, and you got to hear the stories of other survivors who have gone through military sexual trauma as well, and they need to be represented. So it's not just about a certain group of people. Creating entitling progress means that we fight for everyone who's a part of the next generation of young people. And no matter who that is, the next generation deserves to be protected. So I want to say thank you to the very brave people who came on our show today and who shared their stories very authentically and honestly. And to the people in power, when you see this, I ask that you consider the stories of others. And when you think about what we're doing for MSTM and her family, it's about leaving the most powerful legacy that we can, and that is for the next generation of young people. So we ask and we urge you to include these other aspects of MIRA as well in the IAmVanessaGuillen Act of 2020. Thank you.